All right. So I am talking with my friend Aimee today. And Aimee, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Aimee Micek, and Liz and I met. Well, like we got to know each other during Beauty and the Beast, but I think we met before that too.
Pretty
Maybe.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We knew of each other prior to Beauty and the Beast, but yeah. And I'm
Yes.
an Aries.
Yes, you are. Just so exciting. Um, yeah, so you were born when the sun and I believe Mercury were both in the sign of Aries. And when is your birthday again?
April 7th.
It's coming up.
It is coming up, and I will be quarantined for it, so that'll be a different experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Not ideal, obviously. But I'm sure you'll still get, lots of texts and, people checking in and saying happy birthday.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. Not like
It'll
on the attention stuff, so like it's okay if I don't need to have like a huge party or anything like that. Like
well, I mean, in that case, you're off the hook this year.
I know exactly.
Okay, so the first question I wanted to ask is, um, I remember telling you that when I met you, I was surprised you were an Aries, but what way or ways do you identify with being an Aries, if any?
I think the biggest one that stands out to me is the taking leadership or the sense of like wanting control, especially right now where like you have no control of anything going on. That is really hard for me. And like that's why I love directing more than acting, because I have more of like the ability to be in charge and make sure that things are going well to my ability and that I'm doing everything I can to keep everything in line. Where when you're an actor, you don't have that same sense of control. You have to go by what everybody else is doing or what your director wants you to do. So that's why I always prefer like a role in leadership, or why I liked being a teacher, because then I was in charge of a whole class. And now I just sound really bossy, but that's like my like favorite thing. I think the thing that I categorize myself as an Aries most for is my like wanting to be a leader and wanting to have like that control. Even like in friend groups, um sometimes I feel like I gravitate more towards people that need someone to like organize plans or like put things together or like take charge of things. Like if I was my friend's maid of honor last summer, and I took charge of like everything because she didn't know what she was doing and she was the one getting married. But it was like her husband like planned everything, because I think he's an Aries too, so that's probably where that comes from. But then I was like, okay, well, just let me know what you need me to do, and then I took control of those things. So I think it's just that's my most natural Aries thing, is what do I need to do to get stuff done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're definitely a take charge person. If you haven't already offered to do something and we ask, "Hey, Aimee, can you take care of this?" You're like, "Yes, I'm on it," and you will
Yeah.
have it done within the day.
Yeah. I will get it done as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah,
That's a blessing and a curse, I should say, too. But that's okay.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm sure, would you say that you would rather volunteer to do something because you know that you can do it?
Yep.
Okay.
If somebody's like, I'm not sure how to do this, and they're like putzing around with it, I am very much the person to be like, I can do it, just let me do it and I'll get it done. And that was the kind of person I was in group settings. Like I was the person that if the group wasn't pulling the weight, I would do the entire project, because that's the Aries in me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's super Aries, like that take charge energy, um, wanting to be in charge, wanting to get things done. That's awesome. I think that's mostly a good quality that, Aries should be appreciated for.
Yeah. I think that's like the good side of it. But I also think, well, we'll probably talk about the stuff that I don't like about being an Aries, right? Because that's like, I could go into that for a while.
Yes. Well, tell us some of the things you don't like about being an Aries. I'm curious.
Well, okay. So there's kind of like a backstory. So my dad is also an Aries. Our birthdays are like, I think 5 days apart. Okay. I don't have like a relationship with my dad, but from what I understand, he and I are very similar, but only in like the negative ways. According to my mom, all of my negative traits come from my dad, which I'm sure many divorced kids probably hear similar things like, oh, you get that from your dad, whether it's really from your dad or your mom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, my dad is 100% Polish too. So we have like, that's like a temper issue, according to my mother. Polish people have a really bad temperament. I don't know if that's true or not, but I also think that comes from the fact that we're both Aries. When I am upset, there is like, I can go from 0 to 100. If I feel like attacked, or if someone close to me is attacked, I go from 0 to 100. There's no filter. I just go off. And it takes a lot to get to that point. But when it happens, sometimes there's no going back for me. And it's really hard for me to like dial it back once I've gotten to that point. So that's one like big negative thing. And I don't think many people have seen that side of me, honestly. I could maybe count like a handful of people that have seen that. But when they have, it's not like a good situation. And for some reason, most of the time, those people are also Aries, which is weird. But my old best friend was an Aries, and her and I had a huge falling out because I think like we just like collided, and we both went from 0 to 100 in like 60 seconds, and then boom, clash, done. And that was that. And that happens. But I'm friends with another Aries, and it's not like that at all. So it's just, I think it just depends on how we interpret those emotions and what we do with them. But for me, it's definitely like a mama bear kind of instinct that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably another control thing too, honestly. If I use that mama bear analogy, it's like that having sense of control and then someone taking it away, I will go like 0 to 100. So yeah,
Yes. Yeah, that is a shadow side of the sign of
yeah,
Aries.
yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank you for talking about that. I think because that's that's really big of you to admit that every sign has negative traits, but it's really big of you to be willing to talk about some of the not so, shiny traits that we all have.
right. Oh, totally. And I think that, I mean, you can even like astrology aside, the more open you can be with yourself about like your negative traits, the better off I think you are as a person. To be like, yep, this is something I do. So how can I curb that, or how can I like pull it back? I don't know if I've 100% learned how to pull everything back, but I think I'm getting better with age. But when I was a teenager, oh my, you could not pull me back at all. It was horrible. Like I apologize to my mom even like to this day for how awful I was as a teenager. So I mean, it can be very real.
Well, and when Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and so it's also, it goes a little bit from the first sign being like a toddler, being the youngest sign, and
Hmm.
the oldest sign or the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces,
Okay.
which kind of, they're born with kind of this infinite wisdom already. And Aries, an underdeveloped Aries or a young Aries, um, is really young and really impulsive, really impatient, really quick to anger. They're like a toddler. They're kind of hard to control.
Oh, absolutely. That is like me as a teenager to a T. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yep.
Yikes.
It was not fun. Well, I mean, it's fun for me, I think. I don't even remember because I think I just like totally blacked out in like teenage Aries, teenage rage and just like went off. But, you know, from what I understand, it wasn't fun for anyone else.
Well, it's that fire energy that
Yeah.
burns, and it's hard to be around when you guys go off. It's kind of scary.
Oh, totally. Totally.
So I would never, and I'm sure I have been, but I would never like want to know that I was on your bad side because I would be like, oh my
On
God.
the bad side, because you would know. You would know if you were on my bad side.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aries are not shy about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the second question I wanted to ask you was oh, what are some like common stereotypes or misconceptions that you feel people make about Aries?
I think the hot-headed one is a big one. And I think, well, and I think just like in talking with people that are also Aries, I think the biggest one is like the going from 0 to 100 but all the time. Like there's no, for me it takes a lot to get there, but I think a lot of people think like Aries are just generally hot-headed, stubborn people, and I don't think that that's true. I do think I am stubborn in some sense of life, but I don't think it's everything. And I think a lot of people believe that we are just like, it's our way or the highway. And if you aren't going to take our highway, then you can, I don't know, go off and do your own thing or leave me alone or, die in a fire or whatever. Like, I think that's what they think that how we react to things. And sometimes it is that, but it takes a lot for me to get that way. And I think people believe that any little thing is going to set me off to that like 100 point. And that's not true. I'm trying to think of what else people have said to me that's like, oh, that's such an Aries thing. I don't remember. I can't think of it right now. But if I think of one, I'll just like interrupt you and like jump in and be like, oh yeah, I thought of it.
Well, that's very Aries.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in whenever I'm ready.
Exactly. No, that is another thing too. That is something I'm very horrible at and I'm trying to be better about. But like, I think my grandmother was March 22nd. So would she be an Aries or no?
Yes, but just like she's probably the first day of Aries.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Because my grandmother was notorious for interrupting whatever you were. It didn't even have to be like the same level of conversation. She would just jump in with whatever you were talking about. I could have been talking about a class I had that day in college, and she would immediately interrupt me with something that she felt was more important and like on a need to know right now basis. Everything was need to know. You have to know this right now, whether it has anything to do with your story or not. And I think I get that a little bit from her, but now I'm starting to realize that that's probably just a little bit more of like my Aries shining through.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, their patience is not their forte.
No. And like being a nanny and working with two little boys that are 3 and 5, some days I come home and my brain is just exhausted because I have to practice so much patience. And I think I am a fairly patient person, but when it comes down to it, if something is not going right or something is not, if I'm losing control of a situation, then my patience goes out the window because then it's like, I can't fix this right now. So what am I going to do? And I just kind of like not lose it, but you know what I mean? Like lose a sense for what I'm doing at that moment. So that's another thing that I probably really struggle with.
Yeah, well, that is something I think I've heard a lot of fire signs in particular struggle with, is the impatience and the, wanting to have control and wanting to, you know, they don't they don't want to do things. They want like instant gratification. They want it to be now.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and Aries isn't always, they're really good, I think, at like initiating and like starting things. And then some Aries really like, they're like, yeah, let's do this, and then they lose steam, so they need to hand the baton off to another sign to carry it through. But Aries is like the starter pack of the zodiac.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really see that in you. Do you have trouble? You don't have trouble like finishing things.
No, not, I mean, not in like the sense of like directing and working. Like if I start something, I can finish it. But there will be times where like I do need motivation from other people to like keep going. If I feel like something isn't going well, I'm like, this isn't going well and I don't know what to do, and like the world is on fire kind of thing. But
Mhm.
then, I just need some like reassurance, like somebody to put out the fire.
Okay. Yeah, because as a, yeah, you start the fire, right? You still there? Uh-oh. You froze again.
Okay.
Oh no! You froze and then it was like, bye.
Oh no. Yeah, I was like talking and then I was like, she's not moving at all.
I know you weren't moving either. You were like,
Oh, great. What did I leave off on? I can try to repeat where I left off.
I think the last thing I had asked you was, we were talking about finishing things, and I was
Oh,
saying
sure.
you identify with being a good starter of projects.
So I think I can finish a project. Um, I can start and finish a project usually pretty easily, but I do think there is a little bit of that like passing the baton if I get to like a roadblock, or if I feel like the project is like imploding and I'm not sure how to fix it. I might pass the baton to somebody who could help me kind of like reel things in and sort things out. And then once I feel like it's in a good place, I can pick it up and finish it on my own again. And usually that person is like Bryn, who helps me kind of reel everything back in and like sort things out. But I think I can do a fairly good job of like starting and finishing things on my own. I just might need like some cheerleading along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I feel like though Aries are good cheerleaders themselves. Like they're the ones who can really give inspiration and kind of light a fire under people's asses who aren't so good at working or like completing things. Like that's how I have experienced a lot of Aries anyways. They're the ones who are like, yeah, you got this, you can do it. So that's something I appreciate about your guys and your sign.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. Like for example, when we did Fringe together and I was the stage manager, I felt like my role was really to like fire people up and make everybody feel like confident in what they're doing and like helping them get to that point, where like Bryn was more of like the brain power around it, where I was more like the steam in the engine, like we can do it, like keep going, it's getting there, it's almost there, like trying to keep it going in that sense. So that was a little bit different for me because I'm used to being the director, not the stage manager. But I liked that because then I got to be like the more supportive part of it, which I don't always get to be when I'm the director. So I did like that in that instance.
Yeah. Yeah, when you were great at it because we knew that you had those leadership abilities and the competence to be a really good stage manager, and we could count on you.
Well, thank you. That means a
So
lot.
yeah, stage managers do not get enough credit.
No, they don't.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So my last official question is, what through living, 30 plus years, you're 30, right?
30. Yep.
So 30 years as an Aries, um, and what you know of the sign and astrology, what would you like people to know about the sign of Aries that might not be obvious or that might be counterintuitive to what they think of an Aries?
Hmm. I think for myself, like when people label me as an Aries, I think a lot of times it comes to that like stereotypical, oh, you must like really know what you want at all times, and it's like it has to be that way. And I think for me, that's not always the case. And sometimes I'm flattered that people think that I always have it together and I know like what I want to do, because that is so far from the truth. Like me personally, I think like I have a good sense of like where I want to be and like what might take me there, but that doesn't mean I have any idea of like what I'm doing in this moment. But um I think just like that general understanding, and this might be for like all signs, maybe I'm just like being an advocate, or I don't know what is happening, but I think it's just like, like, I think it's important to not take the sign at face value, because
Totally.
I've had so many friends that are Aries and we are completely different people. And that's where, like, when you and I have been talking about it, like all of these different pieces that fit in together to make somebody, just because my sign is an Aries, like you said, you were really surprised when you found out I was an Aries, because I don't think that every part of me that's an Aries shows right away. It really takes like getting to know me to find those pieces of an Aries in me. And I think I have other like characteristics that might lead people to believe I'm a different sign, because like upon first meeting me, I'm not going to like tell you that I like control and I want to be a leader, and that, like if it's not my way, it's the highway. Like that's not how you introduce yourself to people. So like how else, if I tell people I'm an Aries, then they just jump to all of those things. But I think that's true for any sign. Like if like when I met Bryn and I was like, oh, he's a Leo, he's going to want to be the center of attention all the time and there will be no off switch. And it was like that for a very long time. When we started dating, I was like, where is your off switch? And he'll tell you, I said that a lot. Like, you can turn it off now. It's just the two of us. Like, just turn it off. And now, like 5.5 years later, there is an off switch, and he is a very different person when it's just the two of us. But I know when that on switch comes on now too. Like I can see that. So if I judge people based on like just their sign and not like any of the other pieces that fit into that like astrology piece, I feel like you're missing an entire person.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're oversimplifying people.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I just tell you I'm an Aries and I tell you nothing about myself, and I come in and I have like this fiery red hair and this bright red lipstick and I'm like, I'm an Aries, people are going to be so put off by that, because they're like, oh, like, who are you? Like, why do you need to be this person? And I
Yes.
really think that I play up to that idea as much as I know Aries that do, like they breathe fire. Like my other friend who's an Aries, she is like a fire breather Aries. Like,
She terrified me.
yeah, like like I think like I want to say that she's like a double Aries or something. Like she has to be, because it's like, look out. And I
Yes.
am not that way. Like she is an Aries. And when she tells you an Aries, when she tells you she's an Aries, just be careful. Where like
Yes.
I say I'm an Aries, I don't want people to be like, or ooh, I don't know about like having a conversation with her, whatever. But like maybe the idea that we're not approachable. I don't know. But
I
maybe I'm
think that is a stereotype. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I guess I just hope that people look beyond that. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, you certainly did after you were like, you're an Aries. I mean, clearly there's likable things about me, whether I'm an Aries or something else. So,
Yeah. Well, you're a very, I mean, I think there's many layers, obviously, and you can see that in people's birth charts, but with having your sun in the 8th house, as I explained a little bit before, is you are very multi-layered. Like there are many depths to you. And I think I could sense that when I first met you, and I am so fascinated, and that like really draws me in when I meet someone who I can sense has a lot of depth. And you do. And that's not something, that is not a trait that is often attributed to Aries. And that's unfair, I think.
yeah. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think that's like, and I didn't know that about myself. Like you just told me that before we started talking. But like from an astrology point. But I don't want to be somebody that walks around and I'm like, yeah, I'm so deep. Like I have so much that like makes up the person that I am. But it's true. And I think we all do to some extent have like different layers that make us who we are, because that's how could you have a personality if you don't have different attributes that make you the person you are. But I
Right.
think like from an astrology standpoint, like you telling me that made a lot of sense, because I don't feel like I'm 100% Aries. I do feel like I fall onto other category or other signs constantly, daily. I see different parts in me. Some days I feel like a Leo and I want attention. Most of the time that never happens. But like I'm the person who like even as the director, when the kids all line up to like shake hands and like welcome everybody, I stand like far away. I do not want any recognition. Like it's about the kids, it's not about me. Like that's where like the control in me is done. Like the show is over, now it's out of my hands and I can move on.
Yes.
So,
And that's, that is something that's got to be somewhere else in your chart, because Aries, one thing they do have in common is not with Leo. It's not the wanting attention so much. But Aries tagline, each sign has a tagline, and Aries is I am.
mhm.
And so underdeveloped Aries or immature Aries can be me, 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 me,
Yeah,
me. My needs, me first.
yeah,
And that's a little bit, it's similar to Leo, but it's a little different flavor. It's that fire, though, that fire that needs to be seen and needs to be the brightest thing in the room. And that is not something I would
no.
say. If anyone was asking me about you, I'd be like, no, Aimee is not a me, me, me person.
No, I think I am quite the opposite. Quite the
Yeah.
opposite. So I don't know. That's like a negative, I guess, that I don't want people to think that it is like all about me, because I'm not that way. And I do think people that I've had this is getting a little deep, but people that I've had disagreements with probably do believe that I am very much about myself. And um but people don't understand too that if I have a disagreement with you, I probably think about it every night before I go to bed for like the next 9 years. So like like
Oh
trust
my
me, I still think about things that happened in like first grade that I will like forever be sorry for, which is like not, whatever. But I I don't see myself as like a me person. So
God. No.
I
No,
don't want
you,
people to like think that either. So I don't know, but
yeah, no, you clearly care a lot and hold on to things, maybe
yeah.
past their expiration
After
date.
due date, yeah, that's for sure. Or expiration
Yes.
date, yes.
Um, and that is not something that's traditionally um, known about Aries. I don't think
Yeah.
is like that's fire signs. Typically, people who have a lot of fire are able to let go of things quickly and able to move on quickly. And so, if I know someone who, you know, if I'm still stewing about an argument, but they've moved on, I know that they have some fire in their chart because they can't be bothered to dwell. They're on to the next thing.
Right. Right.
So again, there's that like multi-layer
Yeah,
thing that makes you you and makes you unique and makes you, a well-rounded human.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great one though, that, the hot-headed and, that it's not always me, me, me.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay. Cool, cool. Well, I am going to, unless you want to add anything else, I'm going to stop recording.
I don't think so. I think that's it. Just
Okay.
raising awareness, for my Aries people out there.
Yay! Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. I love